Welcome to LFC Transfer Hub. Eddie Howe offers classy Alexander Isak response despite relationship change. Mickey van de Ven reveals Alexander Isak texts after injuring Liverpool striker. 3 ways Liverpool could line up versus Wolves after Alexander Isak and Dominic Szoboszlai setbacks. Now details. Eddie Howe described Alexander Isak as an incredible footballer as he looked back on Newcastle's 2025, a year which saw the Magpies end a 70-year wait for a domestic trophy. Newcastle won the game 2-1, with Isak scoring the team's second goal after Dan Burn headed the North East club in front in the first half. Despite what transpired in the months after that game, with Isak effectively going on strike to force his way out of Newcastle, Howe did not let that cloud his view on Isak's contribution to a historic success. It was put to Howe in an interview with Sky Sports that Isak had tarnished his Newcastle legacy with the manner of his exit, but Howe did not want to discuss that, instead choosing to focus on the Carabao Cup final. "I'd probably just look at that individually in the moment," Howe said, "and the moment is a really special one for the football club. Alex played his part in the season. You look at him as a footballer, he's an incredible footballer. He can do things that I've not seen many others do. The thing I love about that goal for him is that it's just deadly." Isak secured a Premier League record transfer to Liverpool on deadline day of the summer window, having refused to train and play for Newcastle in pre-season due to his desire to move to Anfield. In the days after Isak completed his move to Liverpool, Newcastle boss Howe said Isak's decision to go on strike changed the relationship between manager and player. "Alex and I always enjoyed a great relationship," Howe said in September. "I loved working with him. I hope he enjoyed working with us. It was mutually beneficial. We helped him become the player he in part is today, and he helped us as a team achieve some unbelievable milestones and was part of a very successful team. The moment he went on strike, our relationship did change, and that was probably a turning point in our relationship." Isak is now facing a lengthy spell on the sidelines after the striker suffered a serious leg injury during Liverpool's win over Tottenham on Saturday. Isak emerged as a substitute with the game goalless and was responsible for breaking the deadlock as he latched onto Florian Wirtz's through ball and lashed the ball into the Spurs net. However, Isak stayed down after scoring under a challenge from Mickey van de Ven, and in subsequent scans, confirmed that Isak had fractured his leg. Mickey van de Ven reveals Alexander Isak texts after injuring Liverpool striker. Mickey van de Ven says he has messaged Alexander Isak to apologise following the tackle that resulted in the Liverpool striker suffering a broken leg last weekend. Isak underwent surgery on Monday to mend an ankle injury, which included a fractured left fibula, after being on the receiving end of a late, heavy challenge from Tottenham defender Van de Ven, while scoring the opening goal in Liverpool's 2-1 Premier League victory in London on Saturday. Liverpool head coach Arne Slot's assertion that the tackle was reckless was dismissed by Tottenham counterpart Thomas Frank on Tuesday, but leaves Isak facing months on the sidelines. Van de Ven has now detailed the conversation he had with Isak after the severity of the injury became apparent, insisting he had no intention of causing harm to the Swedish international. "Yeah, I've texted him, of course," Van de Ven told Sky Sports. "I sent him a text because I didn't want to injure him. I didn't want to do something to hurt him, of course. I just wanted to try to block the shot, and I think it was a bit unlucky how his foot landed between my legs. So yeah, I sent him a text afterwards, and I wanted to wish him all the best for his recovery. That's what I said to him. He really appreciated the message," he texted back. Following this latest setback in a challenging season, Isak is now expected to spend several months out of action after his British record $169 million, £125 million, transfer from Newcastle United at the beginning of September. Spurs manager Frank stated yesterday, "I am obviously disagreeing with Slot in many ways," he said. "We are talking about a defender that will do everything he can to avoid the goal. It is a transition, there is a ball down the side, and he is doing everything he can to block the shot, so he is sliding. Unfortunately, Isak plants his foot so it makes it look worse than it is, but that is a natural action for a defender. Put it this way, if my defender does not do that, they are not true defenders. Reckless challenge, I don't think you see anything like that from Mickey. He is very fair, and I know the two players have sorted it out, so that's a good sign." 3 ways Liverpool could line up versus Wolves after Alexander Isak and Dominic Szoboszlai setbacks. Liverpool might be struggling for numbers heading into the weekend's clash with Wolves in the Premier League, but Arne Slot still has some major decisions to make. Alexander Isak, of course, is set to miss the next few months because of a broken leg, while Dominic Szoboszlai will be absent here through a suspension for collecting 5 yellow cards. Mohamed Salah is at AFCON, while Joe Gomez and Wataru Endo are both injured, and Cody Gakpo and Connor Bradley are doubts. What can Arne Slot do with his team selection? Liverpool.com has taken a look at the options available to the Dutch head coach, and they are limited. Option 1, Jeremy Frimpong on the wing. If Connor Bradley is fit enough to start, the most obvious solution would be to play Jeremy Frimpong in Szoboszlai's position. The Dutch international is arguably better as a winger than a right-back anyway. That would involve the fewest changes to the team that won at Tottenham. Szoboszlai was playing wide right, and Frimpong did well at Spurs when he came on and provided an assist. It would all hinge on there being another option, Bradley, to play at full-back though. With Joe Gomez out, Szoboszlai suspended and Curtis Jones needed in midfield, there really isn't much of a choice beyond that. Option 2, Federico Chiesa starts. Only once before has Federico Chiesa started for Liverpool in a Premier League game, and that did not go well. The Reds already had the title wrapped up, and the Italian was deployed down the centre in a meaningless defeat at Brighton. Could he be handed another opportunity here? It might well be now or never. Chiesa, aside from Frimpong, who might be needed at full-back, is the only available option to play off the right. If Frimpong is required in defence, Arne Slot would surely have to turn to Chiesa. It would either be the former Juventus man or a younger alternative with less experience, but perhaps the match sharpness to the 90 minutes. Arne Slot can give Mohamed Salah exactly what he wants now, as Liverpool gets timely reminder. It was inevitable, wasn't it? With Egypt fighting to try and find a winner late on against Zimbabwe, you just knew Mohamed Salah would have his say. The Liverpool talisman sent the timeliest of reminders back to Anfield, as he spared his country's blushes in their opening Africa Cup of Nations encounter on Monday. Dropping points against a side making just their 6th appearance at the tournament would have been quite the embarrassment for the continent's most successful nation. But Salah's knack for coming up with clutch moments isn't just reserved for his club. Granted, those moments have been a little more sparing for the Reds this season, but when you need a goal, there aren't many players you'd want to rely on more than Salah, and that quality could be more important than ever for Liverpool right now. Arne Slot's side is facing a battle just to get into the top 4 of the Premier League this season, and they look like they'll have to do it without the man brought in to set them aside from their rivals. Alexander Isak's broken leg comes at a bad time for the Reds. The schedule is about to get busier, and the options in attack were already being stretched before Mickey van de Ven's ill-timed challenge. As much as Slot might be confident that Isak will return before the end of the campaign, we've already seen why we'll likely have to wait until next season now to see the former Newcastle man at his best. In fact, Slot practically spelled it out himself as he detailed the struggles Isak went through after missing pre-season. Liverpool will therefore need all the help it can get during the second half of the season, and Salah's return from AFCON, whenever that is, now looks vital. For all the talk of the 33-year-old having potentially played his final game for the club, the Reds arguably need him now more than ever, if nothing else, just to lessen the burden on Hugo Ekitike up front. And that should make it easier for Slot to convince Salah to stay at Anfield. We all know he doesn't take kindly to being left on the bench, but the Liverpool boss has little choice but to play him once he's back. I think it's pretty certain now that Mo Salah will stay when he comes back from AFCON, Jamie Carragher, perhaps Salah's most vocal critic during the fallout from his outburst earlier this month, said on Sky Sports, Monday Night Football, "We wanted that to happen. That's not to say Slot should be bending over backwards to give in to any demands that Salah should be guaranteed to be starting every game. If he feels his team is better off without last year's Golden Boot winner, then that should be his decision. But given the current state of Liverpool's squad, and what's on the line during the second half of the season, the Reds can't afford to let a player like that go next month. Already, various outlets such as TalkSport are suggesting Salah will stay put beyond January, and rightly so.